the Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.
Hi, I'm Cherry Johnson with the Watauga County Arts Council. It's that time of year again. We are accepting applications right now from artists for Regional Artist Project Grants, and I have a winner with me. But not this year's winner. She was last year's winner, one of last year's winners. This is Lynn Druryea. Lynn is a clay artist, a sculptor, it's kind of a cut above what you'd really consider the normal potter type work. I mean, it's something different. It's a little more than. Tell me about you and your work first.
Well, my work has really changed over the years. I've been working with clay for a long time, and I did start out as a potter and was a studio artist in Maine for many years, and went to graduate school a little later on in my career, at which point my work really changed. And at that point, I started working more sculpturally in a variety of scales, a variety of materials, still primarily clay. Some of my work incorporates metal, and some of it incorporates found objects.
I haven't seen the found object thing.
Well,
that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I have an image or two with me of that. So,
good.
But if people ask me, I will respond to anything. I will respond to potter, ceramic artist, ceramist, sculptor. If people ask me, I usually say I'm a ceramic sculptor. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I work in a variety of scales, and the work that I do is the things that inspire me are very ordinary things. The opening line of my artist statement is, "The ordinary is quite extraordinary." So,
nice statement.
And so I look a lot at architecture, at various kinds of structure. Things like grain elevators, water towers. I grew up on the end of Long Island in New York State, in a town called Montauk, fishing community primarily then.
Right.
And so influenced by boats, various kinds of vessels, docks, pilings, and I think you can see that reference in my work.
How interesting. It sort of reminds me, and this is a bit of a stretch, but it reminds me of the photographers who focus on the minute to the point to where you no longer recognize it as what it is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So it gets,
it becomes sculptural, it becomes a design.
Right.
And it's not so much the object as it is the shapes and the colors,
exactly.
and all of that. So your analogy there sort of takes me that direction,
And so what I'm after with my work is referring to things. I'm not trying to replicate these. For instance, I look a lot at tools and mechanical things, and I think all my years as a potter, I'm very interested in ideas of function. So my work obviously isn't literally functional. You're not eating or drinking out of it, but it refers to functional items or pieces and structures.
Now, when you started, did you do functional items?
I did. Yeah. I started.
So you started out with the pot and the cup and the whole thing. Yeah.
And I threw for years, although I would always go back and forth between throwing and hand building. But hand building is and slab construction, which is sheets of clay, is what's emerged.
You do more of that.
That's pretty much exclusively what I do for my own work. When I'm teaching throwing, obviously I'm throwing, but for my own work, it's all entirely slab construction.
So the inspiration that keeps you going from one piece to the next is you see something, and it inspires something.
Well, that's true, but it was really going to graduate school and having the opportunity to kind of take a break from trying to support myself and to really think about what it was that interested me. And so it was a process of producing and being questioned about it, and thinking about what I was doing research, looking at the work of other artists. And I went to the University of Florida that not only has a good clay program, but has a very strong sculpture area. And so that gave me access to access to a whole other way of kind of thinking and working that I think had profound impact on my work. So it ended up being a great choice for me in terms of a school.
Well, you and I were talking before we started taping this that sometimes it's things you don't expect that will influence you, that will make differences in your life, and changes in direction even, just by coincidences.
Right.
And so to some degree, that's kind of the way it worked out for you, because going to school there really did turn you around a corner.
Yeah, my work was entirely different when I came out. I mean, I think you could see connections and threads, and there certainly are, there's older work that I did that I think is kind of, in a way, the precursor for what I'm doing now. But so there's certain ideas and themes that kind of remain constant they sort of go down and come up and go down and come up, but that there are, you know, ways of working and things about certain forms that appeal to me that kind of never go away in terms of, you know, my interests.
Now, you applied for this grant last year, and what was it you wanted to accomplish?
Well, I actually have been fortunate enough to get 2 regional artist project
Yes, you have.
grants.
Congratulations for that. That's not everyone can say that.
Last year's was I was on leave from my teaching job at Appalachian, and we in North Carolina instead of sabbaticals, we have something called off-campus scholarly assignment. So we apply and get approved. And what I did for 2 months last fall was I was guest artist at a creative community in Arizona, a place called Rancho Linda Vista. That's an unusual community that was formed in the 60s or 70s by artists and architects who taught at the University of Arizona. And it was a piece of property that had been a working cattle ranch and then had been kind of a guest ranch. And the property came up for sale, and a group of artists and architects got together and bought the property.
Kind of sounds like a Western version of Penland.
I know. Well, it's very different in that they're not teaching there, but they have a guest artist program. Most of the people who live there are artists, not all of them. Some of the original members are still there. They own the property in trust, in common, and then the people living on the community have houses. And what was the barns are now studio space. So what I got, they have a guest artist program because they like having different people come through with different ideas and kind of, you know, keeps things lively. So I had a wonderful little guest house to myself and a great studio space, very bare bones, but plenty for me, and in the complex with the other artists. So, and some people I saw a lot of, and some people I hardly saw at all. But they have a very nice gallery space. It's not a regular commercial gallery, but they've done it well and seriously and very professionally. So the openings are the big deal because that's when a lot of people come, and then after that, people, you know, kind of trickle in and out.
Right.
But I had a very successful show there. I was very pleased with how it looked, and I think just, you know, new audience and new territory. I had sales that were surprisingly high to me, so I was very pleased.
That's great. And now, how did the grant tie into that?
Well, the grant helped pay my expenses. So on the trip out there, I made arrangements to speak about my work at 3 schools in Texas. So that was part of my travel funding, was the honoraria from those speaking engagements. But I had expenses related to travel, to the rent while I was the guest artist, and minimal expenses other than that. They really keep it very reasonable. So the grant helped fund that, the travel, the expenses related to you know, getting me and my work out there. Most of it came in my car with me, but I did have to ship a little bit. And so that was what I wrote the grant for. That was the focus, was to support the residency.
Well, it's obvious to me that being around in that environment would feed you as much as it fed them.
Yeah. Oh, it was wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there was, to me, this is a sort of a redundant question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
How did this help your career? What is it about this that helped your career?
Well, what it did was enable me to take a break from full-time teaching, which is, you know, demanding.
Consuming.
Consuming. Yes, that would be a good word for it. And I'd been at Appalachian for 8 years, and I had been I had a few other teaching jobs between leaving graduate school and getting the job at Appalachian, but I'd been pretty much kind of full steam ahead with a lot of things, and so this gave me an opportunity to kind of reflect and spend a lot of time, you know, reading, thinking, making. And I came up with some new shapes. I work a lot with tar paper as a way to generate ideas, and so I did a lot of sketching. I made a lot of tar paper patterns. I made some clay pieces from that, and so it really enabled me to kind of expand my vocabulary in a way. And it was just came at a really good point. So I came home feeling like I had made some real progress.
That's great. And an artistic interlude, an artistic respite.
And it wasn't necessarily in volume of work produced as it was just a lot of idea generation. I mean, I did come home with some actual pieces, but more of it was just a kind of a initiated a new way of thinking and work process.
So you'll be reaping the benefits of this for some time to come.
Yeah. And it was very nice. I had a big show this summer. I'm one of the artist founders of a place called Watershed Center for the Ceramic Arts in Maine. And the 3 artist founders had a show together. So I immediately had an opportunity to show some of the new work to an audience really from all over the country.
That's great.
Yeah, so it was...
so an immediate result.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, so that was very satisfying.
Now, for those artists who are contemplating applying for this grant, now you're a teacher, so they're going to go, sure she could get a grant, sure she could apply for it. How hard is this really?
It's not that hard. It's a matter of, there's writing of a narrative and putting together a budget.
Right.
And because I've written a fair number of grants in the past, that's helpful experience to have. But I know that you have workshops to help artists who are doing it for the first time.
And also, if an artist missed the workshops, we'll sit down one-on-one, and I'll help them with that process.
Okay.
And I also will review, now you didn't need it, but I will review applications from other artists, and make suggestions, that kind of thing. I did a workshop yesterday, and I noticed that when I said the word budget, someone went, they didn't know what I meant.
Yeah.
Basically, all it is you say, how much money do you need, and what do you need it for, and how are you going to come up with the money? How much of it is the grant, and how much other money do you have from whatever other sources you can come up with to make it happen?
Some of which is obviously is personal funds. I mean, I had another grant through the university, a University Research Council grant that was but that didn't really pertain to so much to this. That was really another cycle.
And it's not really a matching grant, So that's your project was a fairly expensive project, so it was more than we could fund.
Oh yeah.
But some people ask for things that really we basically pay the whole bill.
Right.
And you don't have to have a match. It's not required that you have the same amount of money tucked away and spend your own money too. If you can justify what you need and how you need it, that's going to help you as an artist, and that your work is good work, and that you're worthy of investment in, then that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And so
and the first grant that I got was I think it was in '06, and I had curated an exhibition connected to our National Clay Conference. National Council on Education in the Ceramic Arts. And so and I was I was participating in the show, and at the same time I had, or very close, that was out in Portland, Oregon, and I also had a solo show at a gallery, the Lacoste Gallery in Concord, Mass. So I had a lot of shipping expenses. I wanted to do some promotion above and beyond what these shows were doing, or what the galleries were doing for the shows. Wanted to print a new postcard and take advantage of these opportunities. So those were the kinds of things that Regional Artist Project
which
grant
goes to show it's not what you might think. It's a very open field. Lots of variety of things that we could fund that will help an artist. So I think that's really neat. And she doesn't need it, but some artists will have someone buy them a wheel for throwing their pots or whatever. We can have we have even helped people renovate their studios.
Right.
So it just all depends on what your need is.
What you need, and it's just justifying that need.
Exactly. So you would encourage artists to go out there and apply for this?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's there's not that much actual paperwork. There is some, obviously. There's references and a budget and a narrative
and a report
but that happens later.
And the report's not that complicated.
No, it's not.
It's basically what did you do and so forth. It's pretty simple. But I just want to stress that it's not an impossibility for any artist to do. We would encourage you, we will help you to run through the process. But the deadline is September the 14th, so get busy. If you need to talk to me about it, you can call me at 264-1789, or you can email me. The best thing to do is to go to our website, watauga-arts.org. You'll not only find all the information you need for this grant, you'll also find contact information and so much more. I encourage you to get involved with the Arts Council, get involved with the arts, get involved with being even more entrenched in the art scene in this community, which is wonderful, and we're really excited that we live here.
And I think, and for a lot of people, no one source is going to help fund everything.
Right.
But it's a matter of kind of patching it together.
That's the whole key.
Yeah, and once you've written and gotten some grants, then that helps. And you know, there's a certain amount of cutting and pasting too from previous grants. That's what I always tell my students.
That's always it. Never
I tell my
reinvent
students,
the wheel.
The first one is the worst one, and then after that, it's it gets easier.
Yeah. So, well, we will look forward to seeing all of these wonderful applications from Watauga County. This is a 4-county project. It serves Allegheny, Ashe, Wilkes, and Watauga. And of course, we want Watauga's artists to stand out of the crowd, but we'll support any of the artists from any of the 4 counties. It's a wonderful project called the Regional Artist Project Grant, supported also with funds from the North Carolina Arts Council. And it is a way of really making our community even more special than it already is. And that's what we're looking for. Thank you, Lynn, so much
You're welcome.
for joining
Thank
me
you.
today
Yep.
and sharing this, especially for explaining this whole process from your perspective.
Right.
That's really great. Thank you again for joining us, and we will look for you again next time.
Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.